Secretary of State meets with his Chinese counterparts. The president later today expected to fly off to Iowa for a campaign-style rally. Chris and Brooke, back to you.
Thanks, Joe.
Right,
Appreciate it. Let's bring in our panel. CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein, CNN political analyst April Ryan, and associate editor and columnist at Real Clear Politics, A.B. Stoddard. So, Professor Brownstein, when you look at the numbers here, what is the tale of the tape in these Democrat losses in South Carolina and, of course, Georgia?
Well, I think, if you look across the board, President Trump picked 4 Republicans from pretty Republican districts for his cabinet, and Republicans held all of those seats. So there's an element here of holding serve. There's value in that, but it's not the whole match. On the one hand, I think Republicans saw, particularly in Georgia 6, one very encouraging sign, that they were able to hold Republican-leaning voters who are ambivalent about President Trump by making this less a referendum on him and more a referendum on who do you want to see as Speaker. And that was a very powerful argument for them. On the other hand, if you look across the board at all 4 of these special elections, Democrats ran much better than they did just a year ago in 2016. For example, in Georgia 6, Karen Handel wins by about 3.5 points. Tom Price had never won less than 62% of the vote in the district. And what that says is that when you get to places that are less inherently tilted toward the Republicans, where President Trump's approval rating is closer to the national average of around 40% than to what it was in this district at 50%, those kinds of disparities, those kinds of changes put those seats at risk. So Democrats have a shot at the House. They have no guarantee of the House. And in that way, we're pretty much where we started before these 4 elections happened.
Well, Democrats were hoping to have a shot at the Georgia 6 because of the, president only won by 1.5 percentage points in this particular part of Georgia, even though this is a ruby red district. So April, this is a tweet from Democrat Seth Moulton, Senator. Ossoff race better be a wake-up call for Democrats. Business as usual isn't working. Time to stop rehashing 2016 and talk about the future. 2018 midterms. How did Democrats turn it around?
Brooke, Democrats have to find their footing. They have to find some energy. There's been a lot of resist movement activity. There's been a lot of, we are not happy with this, but it did not translate in the polls last night. And Brooke, in another interesting piece, Ossoff did not get Fulton or DeKalb, his base. So there needs to be some kind of reset. There needs to be, I guess, like Mitt Romney had it, that Etch-a-Sketch moment. They really need to figure out where they are, who they are. There is a dis-ease in this nation. They have to figure out how to tap into that and energize the base. The base is just not energized right now. So, A.B., when you win, it's easy. No real reason to diagnose success. But when you lose, you get into the acronym for FAIL. The future always involves learning. What are the lessons for the Democrats?
Well, I do think that they can comfort themselves with what Ron was talking about, that they grew their numbers so much in a district that was a long-time Republican district, and they're really making strides. But close is no cigar, and I think they do have to listen to Congressman Moulton and focus on a policy agenda. They do actually have an energized base, but when the millions and all of the excitement on social media for the Georgia 6 race comes from out of the Georgia 6 district, and John Ossoff is a carpetbagger who's not voting and not living in that district, it is a problem. Though he spoke like a moderate and really played down, his criticism of President Trump, focused on local issues, they're going to have to think about candidates espousing a policy agenda that gets back to winning back some of the working class white voters in some of these districts where they're really stretching themselves out of a blue district into a purple or red one in order to take back those voters next year. And so I think that that's what they have to realize. It's not just that you can get national excitement behind these individual races because people in California are upset with Trump and sending a big check. That's not going to cut it.
Ron Brownstein. Quickly, and then I want to move on to health care. Yeah.
Real quick, I want to add to what A.B. said, because I agree with that. I think, look, if you look at where Trump is and where the Republican Party is, the biggest opportunity for Democrats is in these white-collar, more affluent, better-educated districts. But this is a reminder that not all of those districts are the same. In the election last year, Hillary Clinton won only 28% of college-educated whites in Georgia, as opposed to almost double that in a place like Colorado. They are going to have to move beyond that into more of the blue-collar places, probably, even though most most of it might be white collar. That's not going to be enough. They're going to have to be able to compete kind of across the spectrum to win back the House in 2018.
So, AB, we're going to have Ron Johnson on. I'm moving on to healthcare for you.
Thank you.
I figured I'd help you out. The professor didn't help you. I'll help you. So we're going to have Senator Ron Johnson on. He's one of the few Republican senators who say, yeah, I know what's in the bill. It's a good bill. We're going to move forward with it. What are the big selling points for them, and how do they explain this secrecy that has so many within their own ranks upset?
Well, it's hard to explain the secrecy, and it would take a lot. It doesn't take a lot for John McCain to criticize his leadership in the clips that you've been playing this morning, but it certainly took a lot, I think, for Senator Mike Lee of Utah, who's been in the working group, to step out and say people in the working group who are supposed to be drafting this bill and handling these negotiations have been left out.
He's frustrated.
That is really that shows a real high level of sort of resentment that they would take that public against their leaders. So the secrecy will always be a big attack surrounding this bill. The components of the bill will be explosive no matter what, because it will irk. They're trying to find a balance between what is a soft landing for states where they expanded Medicaid, are tax credits sufficient enough to cover the cost of the new kind of coverage for people who are older or sick? Will people be priced out of the new kind of coverage? What Ezra was talking about, whether or not premiums in the end go down. Republicans will own the outcome. So they're really scared of this compromise from both sides. But the secrecy decision obviously was, they made a decision that both choices were bad. To come out and take this public would expose them to criticism for all the interest groups in the Democrats and even maybe President Trump, which ended up happening anyway. So they took it behind closed doors, hoping that in the interest of speed, they can get beyond this, because Republican leadership sources have told me if this fails by the end of July, before the August recess starts, they're bailing on this for good and moving on to taxes.
So as we follow that, April Ryan, it's your day job to sit in that briefing room each and every day and ask tough questions of the press secretary. You've heard the line, I don't know, I can't respond, I haven't talked to the president about that. You get that on a couple issues, but when the press secretary yesterday is asked specifically about Russia meddling in the 2016 election, when you know that all of the president's intel chiefs have all said, yes, it was Russia, why can't they say yes?
Because there's an investigation going on, and they have a lot of time before it really comes down to the president having to say something, Brooke. And they're trying to be very judicious in what they say and when they say it and how they say it. And it's a strategic tactic. We all pretty much know where the president is when it comes to Russia. But right now they're trying to hold tight and keep it so they don't cause themselves any more pain. And it's about credibility. It's about where Sean stands, and Sean is deciding with the team not to give the information that we're looking for in Russia.
Okay. Grab some water. Sorry I caught you
choked up,
right
April.
there, choked up on this issue.
Yes.
It's a tough job. It's a tough job, but we appreciate you asking all those tough questions and coming on. Thanks to all of you this morning. Republicans, they have blasted Democrats, as we've been talking about health care. They blasted them for not being transparent when it came to Obamacare in 2009 and 2010. So why are they rushing to pass the bill that really no one's seen?